For free.
Welcome to episode 2 of Founders and Funders. Today I have the founder of Lanestay, Frazer King. Welcome to the show, Frazer.
Thank you for having me, Ray. It's a pleasure as always.
Well, I know what Lanestay does, and we work closely together. For those who don't know what Lanestay is, tell us what Lanestay is and the story behind it.
Cool. So, at its ground essence, Lanestay is a short-term rental property management company based out in Melbourne. We do like to say that we differentiate ourselves a little bit with the narrative. We just go beyond the property management of just taking someone's apartment and putting it on Airbnb, but instead actually creating a better experience, a higher end experience. We're selective with our onboarding, and we also like to touch up the interiors of clientele if they need it, to make sure that at the end result, our returning customers will receive a 5-star experience on the short-term rental market. So we've been doing that for about 3 years now, 1,600 reservations in total, and continue to grow. And I love it.
What inspired you to start Lanestay?
I could break down that answer into two. The first would be a love of travel and that giddy feeling you get when you check in at a nice hotel. When I was young, I always used to love traveling with my parents on business trips because I would get to have that exciting feeling of checking in the lobby. Everything feels relaxed and just that overall buzz and good energy for travel. But the second thing would be perhaps the gap in the market of bridging the gap between what hotels offer in terms of that luxury bed linen, those plush mattresses, those really fluffy towels and the high-end service, with the short-term rental market, which at one point was just people leasing out almost like their spare bedroom and not giving it too much thought. I think that equilibrium has come to the middle a little bit, and now people are starting to take things quite seriously. But 3 years ago, I really did want to bridge the gap. So there was no question. People wanted the bigger space of an apartment and the kitchen and perhaps the personalized aspect of what an Airbnb host can provide, with also the great things that a hotel provide with the Egyptian cotton linen, plush towels, and so on.
Many of my friends and people in my life talk about ideas they have and businesses they want to start, yet they never get there. Was this your first entrepreneurial experience, or how did you get over the obstacle?
I definitely did have a good mentor and leadership in my father. He was an entrepreneur himself. So perhaps that ideology of just doing something as opposed to just thinking about an idea or reminiscing on a potential $1 million opportunity, but never actually pressing execute. That was sort of written out of my brain quite at an early age. To answer your question about entrepreneurial experiences previous, obviously I'm quite young. I did have the cliche entrepreneurial experiences that you do in high school that I loved, and also experiencing what experiences my father would go through. Perhaps one that did come to mind before Lanestay was I was in a really odd and unique situation of being able to drop ship rapid tests during COVID.
No way.
Yeah, no, it was pretty cool.
Where did you source the rapid test?
I was fortunate enough to be able to go to school overseas, and I became best friends and roommates with a gentleman. Perhaps I won't name his name, but his family had a medical company out in Europe, and they were actually supplying rapid tests down for basically all of the EU. And this, I'm not sure if our listeners are all from Melbourne, but at least if you're from Melbourne, there was a time when finding a rapid test was quite difficult, and it was like findatest.com or whatever the website was.
Yeah, I use that.
Yeah, no, everyone did, and you'd see people sprinting to the 7-Eleven to get a test. And at the time, I was just randomly talking to my friend, and he said, I have like 50 million units, right? And I was like, wow, this is insane. And basically, it's a perfect correlation to your question before about just doing it. We didn't really have much time to think about whether it was a good idea or not. We just had to do something about it because it was such a good opportunity in a small window. And it really was a good lesson. We didn't end up getting the big payout that I was dreaming of as a 19-year-old kid, because there was problems with the TGA. But just with a couple of conversations with people and just actually asking the question, we got a lot further than I thought we could have. We actually lined up a big pharmaceutical company in Melbourne who were prepared to buy all of the units, subject to us being able to get it to Australia within 2 weeks, which was super exciting. But subsequently, the TGA didn't approve it because there was problems with the language on the instructions.
Wow.
But nevertheless, that was a really good experience, and we learned some lessons from that about, just doing something, and people saying it's not that simple. There actually is an argument for the opposition in saying that, it can be simple if you follow all these resources out there of what you can do in communicating with people. Often you can get a lot further than you would believe.
Yeah. It can be quite overwhelming to start a new service when there's so many elements. Just listing a property is challenging. How did your first offering look like when you launched Lanestay? What services did you include? What was your go-to-market product?
The tongue-in-cheek answer is too much. We offered too much. I was fortunate enough to have my own small apartment myself. And so I could really take my time with it. And alluding to my point before about how I said, I love that giddy feeling of walking in and feeling like you're in a 5-star luxury. At the time, we offered anything and everything you could think of as an idea in Airbnb. We tried to offer it. And as a naive young entrepreneur, I didn't know what the term of margins was or sustainable inventory and all this stuff. And so I was topping up the marquee cards for my guest. For those who are not understanding what a marquee is, for the listeners, they are travel cards in Melbourne. And we would put chocolate, sparkling water. I would do all the cleaning myself, and I'd actually personally meet the guests myself. So that was everything that you could think of. We put in our apartment initially. But within time, we had to be reasonable, try not to compromise the product, but also understand that at the end of the day, it's a business. And in order for it to be able to continue to scale and deliver a good service, we need to be able to be making money so we can reinvest it back in the company.
That makes a lot of sense. I think you were running multiple experiments at once to try to figure out what things are sustainable and what things people don't value or definitely not sustainable. You were A, B, C, D, E, F testing all at once. That leads to scaling. So how did you scale your business? Many companies in my field in tech look for large investments from private equity and venture capital firms. For you, when you grow your business, how did you fund it?
Well, to answer your question, for people who want to get into the Airbnb industry, if you have a year's worth of rental income for your short-term rental, they actually use that as the rental appraisal that you can then leverage to buy yourself a second property, should that be a higher return in the long-term market. So that is what we did for the second property. We were lucky enough to get some good returns on the first. But after that, it was a question about, do I need to keep buying these properties when I have all this motivation, excitement, enthusiasm about the industry, this wealth of knowledge that I've accumulated? I want more people to experience the Lanestay product. At the same time, perhaps I was going to get to the stage where I was leveraged out. It wasn't the income of what Apple had at the time, only on 2 properties. So we couldn't continue to borrow. And it was honestly just a God-sent gift that Airbnb, the actual company, came up with this new program called co-hosting. And if you met a certain couple of criterias of being a good host, you were able to list yourself and almost get free advertisement. So someone looking to put their property on the market, and they didn't have the privilege of what I did of being a student, living from home and being able to do everything full time. They actually had a full-time job that's to themselves. They could reach out to me. And so I started this business model a little bit, and it checked out. I would take a percentage of their reservation in exchange for handling end-to-end everything for them. And hopefully, with a good co-host, they would also get a return that's greater than the long-term market. So it was a win-win for everyone. And that co-hosting platform is the platform where I've gotten the majority of my foot traffic.
Yeah, I really like the co-host program. I also like that when building products, you build something that works for you. So you've already done it with your own properties. So you know what an owner, a property investor wants out of their short-term rental offering. And then you have evidence to then use from all your reviews to then position to acquire more properties to manage. And then it takes away the leverage component for you that you can still grow your revenues while you're saving up for your next property. And that's really good.
Very, very, very much so. They're able to, they can't stress that enough, that being able to put proof in the pudding per se, and have people look at what we have been doing with our own apartments to give them a sense of comfort, because ultimately we are looking after an important investment for them. It doesn't cost the same as a coffee to buy a property, especially in Australia. So to give someone a chunk of their hard-earned money, they really do want to see the proof that you're able to get the returns that they're wanting.
Yeah. One component of co-hosting that I really like is aligned incentive structures, similar to like something I read in Loon Shots, where it talks about incentives are more important long-term than culture. And for you as a co-host, you are rewarded by doing a good job because you get a percentage of the bookings. It's in your best interest to be great at marketing, customer service, pricing, because it hits your bottom line. Versus if it was a flat fee that you charge, irrespective of bookings, then you could ignore the properties. You can just acquire hundreds of properties and do a really mediocre job, and it wouldn't really affect you, but it would impact the investor. So I like that you're in the same boat with the owner. You get a small cut of it.
You took the words out of my mouth. It's a great experience to be on the same team
Exactly.
with the owner and almost working together, and you both want to profit out of it, because there are other models out there such as subletting, where every week you have the constant pressure of trying to meet the long-term rent that you currently have, your lease, sorry. And then also potentially not being on the same team as your landlord. You're not too sure if the landlord's too happy about you doing short-term rentals in their property. So to be on the same team is definitely beneficial.
Yeah. There's a lot changing in Airbnb globally, but also locally here in Victoria.
Mm-hmm.
How do you foresee some of the upcoming changes in regulation affecting the Airbnb market?
Well, in terms of a factual sense, but for the listeners that don't know, Melbourne is currently proposing that on top of a 7.5% tax levy on short-term rentals to be able to be reinvested for affordable housing, they're also proposing to give the ability to owners, corporations of buildings and local councils to be able to make their own rules based on their community and what's best for their community. So, whether or not that bill gets passed, there is a level of instability. So for us, it is having a bit more of a contingency planning in our business model than we originally had. We were always a 1 to 2 trick pony, and that is mastering the 1, 2, 3 night stays of Melbourne and the high turnover and the high foot traffic that it has. But, in all honesty, if it changes and that helps the community and everyone's wanting it, then the reality of the situation is that we will have to pivot too. And I'm confident that our company will be able to pivot in alignment with what they're proposing. If it changes to a longer term stay, in that now that they're banning short-term rentals, it'll need to be month-long stays, week-long stays, then perhaps we'll pivot our marketing, our pricing strategy and our systems to reflect that. And regardless, I would like people to experience the Lanestay product and continue to grow the company. I don't think that these regulations make this market dead, because it's a beautiful market that I love to be a part of. So, it'll be an interesting watch come January 1st, 2025.
I'm keen to hear how it changes, and I will also have to pivot if it affects me. For those listeners looking into starting their first company, what lessons have you learned now across 2 startups that you wish you knew before you started?
Can I repeat myself before about
Yeah.
the just do it mentality?
Okay.
Shout out to Nike. No, I'm kidding. But honestly, look, when people say it's complicated, this might not happen, this might not work, there's risk involved. The reality of the situation is that when it does come to business, those variables are always going to be there. And it really is important. You can almost go into SAS mode. We call it within our small group, SAS mode, meaning if you're making decisions and you've got a product that you believe in, just actually going out and pressing execute to something rather than reminiscing on it really is going to set you forward. And for us, we were, contemplating a couple of things. Should we do this? Should we not do this? You'd be surprised how much, to use the cliche expression, pressure creates diamonds. And so And so that would definitely be one. It would be that following through with your ideas, asking the question, um, just doing it, and ignoring that it's not that simple, and actually saying, well, it can be simple if you map out a plan. That would be one important thing. I would also, if I had my time again, probably give a little bit more thought into how the business would change based on scaling. So we initially had a couple of apartments, and the problems that come with a couple of apartments are different to what come with a portfolio of apartments. And actually, our growth to a portfolio of apartments came a lot quicker than we anticipated. And we didn't have any learnings or experience beforehand. We actually sort of had to learn on the job type thing. And in hindsight, we did a great job, and I'm proud of it because it didn't compromise the product too much. If you do sort of take that week and say, look, we have properties now, and it's 2 or 3 properties, what would happen and what would change, and what would be the new problems that potentially could arise if there was 20 properties, and mapping that out and seeing what you would revert to if that was to happen. Then when that moment comes, you sort of have a base plan that you can work towards, rather than sort of treading water and trying to flesh out a plan on the spot.
I agree. I'm currently not doing that with my startup, is thinking about what if sales goes a lot quicker than expected. And I think recruitment takes so much time, and scaling requires delegation, and at least in my startups. And that takes so much time that you need to start early and plan for it. Almost proactively collect leads of people you may hire once you're ready, so that you're not looking when you need them, because people need to leave their jobs and they want to follow your journey. So when you scaled, my understanding is you've hired people and you have a team now. What was your approach to it? How did you build your team, and what was important?
That is the perfect example, the perfect word, sorry, proactive. You do have to be proactive rather than reactive. Look, it's a balance. I think that, but when I say team, the majority of our team members are housekeepers. And I do think that everyone on this planet is relatively switched on enough that with the right training, you can clean a house quite thoroughly. And so from that, it would be more so from a personality viewpoint, if their values aligned with ours, if they were as enthusiastic about the good feeling when you get a 5-star review for the cleanliness and making the guest experience good. And from there, we were confident enough. Actually, I was confident enough, because I was the housekeeper for 2 years myself, to be able to teach them the ins and outs of how it goes. And those people are a lot more sustainable than potentially people coming in with an ego because they're the best housekeeper in all of the land, but actually they don't share the same values as your company. It does show in the final product. So that would be one point to your question. The second thing about the scalability and making sure you proactively hire, it also is a common balance. So we can't expect to spend much more, than we need to, because then the margin's going to be way out of balance. So we can't over hire too much, because then there's going to be some housekeepers that miss out on shifts. And then when they miss out on shifts, then they're going to feel relatively insecure about their position. They might have to look elsewhere, and that might impact the roster. So it was always a bit of a double-edged sword with that, but we've seemed to manage it and pull through. And we've got a great team now. It's 5 housekeepers, and they all get along. We're all close, and they all got the same common goal, which is great to see.
And I think you have incentives for them to promote the right outcomes. Is that true?
We do. So as you were saying before about having skin in the game, we have a promise to them. If they're proud of their cleaning, it will show, because the training that we've given them should give them a 5-star review. So if our housekeepers keep up the 5-star review cleanliness, we know that it's important for the company, and that will in turn lead to better credibility and more reservations. And so if we benefit, why shouldn't they, type thing. They get paid out incentives if they are meeting their cleaning KPIs, which is keeping quite a high standard of a 5-star rating.
Yeah. I think when I talk to startup founders, no matter how tired they are, they have so much energy and passion to talk about that it may seem like it's rosy and perfect all the time. You and I both know it's not. The best of times, yet also the worst of times. What was the worst of times at Lanestay?
There would be 2. There would be a personal one and an actual business one.
Okay.
we'll start with the business one. The worst of times is when you get in your head a little bit, because the reality of the situation is people are giving you the responsibility to make sure that you're operating one of their potentially retirement assets well, and giving them the extra cash flow so they can invest and set up their future. So when reservations aren't popping, it is a little bit difficult, and you sort of have to go back into that SAS mode of going through what you learn and making sure that you can get those reservations back up. But at the end of the day, there is also a market element to it. And, winter is coming is even scarier than Game of Thrones with Airbnb. I don't like winter, but we try our best. But from a personal viewpoint, the tough times, you're right. Everything's rosy as a startup, and you're a founder and you've got a ball full of energy. And I was, waking up at 6 a.m. and working till 10 p.m. at night, and I loved it. And I would walk down the street with my chest out and say, I'll be doing this every day for the rest of my life. The novelty does wear off a little bit. And there is a balance that almost going back into equilibrium after a couple of years where you sort of, one night, maybe even, every fortnight, if you're lucky, you just want to clock off at 9 p.m. and watch Harry Potter with your partner. So in that moment when my phone was still buzzing like crazy at those PM moments, it was a little bit of a light bulb moment for me that it wasn't a sustainable business model for me to do everything myself. And actually, I did need to start to trust other people to delegate and put some of the responsibilities of whether it was guest communication or late night requests onto a different team, which we've subsequently done. So from 8 till midnight, we've got Frazer's little assistant team where they'll be able to answer 90% of the guest trivial questions, and the 10% I'm happy for them to contact me, but at least then it allows me to not have that difficult time of constantly being activated towards the industry and basically having my work life as my entirety of my personality. So yeah.
As a founder, do you find it isolating as a founder because you're everyone's boss and you make the decisions for the company? Or do you have a network of people that you get inspiration and motivation from? You talked about mentors earlier.
Yeah.
How do you feel?
I think both don't need to be mutually exclusive. I think that it can be quite isolating, but you almost sort of prepare for that. So as an owner, you're expected, as the big bad boss, to have the answer for everything. And sometimes when you don't know the answer yourself, it can be quite a stressful conundrum. And you've got all these people relying on you to make the decisions constantly. And I won't lie, at times it can be quite thankless. If you're an employee of a company, or if you're just a key part of a company, then you'll reach a KPI. People will say thank you, people will congratulate you, and then you go home. That is base foundation and a requirement of what an owner is. An owner every time is expected to reach these KPIs without any gratitude, because the reality of the situation is it is your company, you have chosen this path. So it is isolating. I am quite a sociable person. I do love to work, the concept of working alongside people, and sometimes it does feel like they're just answering to you. But as you said, with the mentors, but even more than the mentors, the staff that you have in your team can change that dynamic and can change that culture. So to have staff members that get along with you outside the business as well, be careful with that, but outside in the business as well, in friendship, it really is a benefit to all, so that, at the end of the day, they know you as a person. Us as human beings, we are tribal, and we do want to get along with people beyond just ourselves. So that's also really important.
Yeah. I still think that we are the average of the 5 people we spend the most time with. Who are these 5 people in your life?
Wow. If my parents could be one person, we're going to do that. So my mum and dad, look, my mother has the empathetic, sympathetic mentoring, and she really does make me want to strive to become a better person and a kinder person. She's the kindest person I know, probably looking through rose-colored glasses like many sons do. But my father is a business mentor for sure. He's my biggest inspiration when it comes to entrepreneurship. So he was a self-made, successful businessman that did everything himself, that delegated, that learned all the ins and outs, made the mistakes so that I don't have to. And I'm joking. There would also be my beautiful partner that I live with, Valentina. She is definitely the emotional rock. So she's the cuddle pillow when I come home and when I don't want to talk about property at 9 p.m. at night. And then I've also got, honestly, an incredible group of friends. I can give them a shout out: Matt, Ryan, Xavier, Tom, and Alex.
You only get
Listen,
two. You used three. You only have two.
No,
Now you have to divide your friends now.
They are one working entity. I'm super fortunate to have them as friends. And actually, for the sake of this conversation, I will pinpoint Tom and Alex because they're entrepreneurial and we're actually heading into business together ourselves with a new product that perhaps we can talk about a little bit later. But they are great in that sense because we're all able to relate with each other when it comes to being that solo business owner. So yeah, I'm spending a lot of time with them recently because of the new company.
Nice. That's my next question. The future, what's in store for you? More startups, expanding Lanestay? What does the next 5 years look like for you?
Both
Wow.
new startups and expanding Lanestay. I think that with whatever form Lanestay will be in, whether the regulations change it, whether the market change it, whether the demand changes it, I think that Lanestay, the brand itself, will definitely be at its ground essence trying to create great travel accommodation experiences for people. I'm also in the process of co-founding an incredible product that I'm super excited about with Tom and Alex, which will actually complement Lanestay. It is a AI-powered web app for Airbnb hosts. We understand it as a big expectation. As I was talking about the 9 p.m. night messages, what's the Wi-Fi password? There is a big expectation on how Airbnb hosts are expected to respond to their guests. 100%, this is a fun little riddle I say, 100% of guests expect a response within the hour and 0% of hosts can be awake 24 hours a day, right? So there is a bit of a gap, and we are using artificial intelligence to be able to create 3 small products. It's a mini chatbot that is a very smart hospitality etiquette chatbot that is able to prioritize the host house manual and the host listing tips and then go to generative AI should it need to just problem solve alongside the guest and give them a companion. Also giving them a map to be able to explore and then a house manual on their phone, so the comfort from their own device. That in itself, I think, will alleviate some of the stress so that you're not expected to respond to an answer at 1 a.m. in the morning about where the Wi-Fi password is. That can alleviate some of the stress. So that's something I'm really excited about. But I have the entrepreneurial bug, Ray. So to answer your question about will there be more startups in the future? Absolutely, there will be. I will be an entrepreneur to the day I die, I believe. I really do love it. I love the thrill of creating something, making people happy, and overall just indulging in that whole experience is something that I've become addicted to.
Do you think you will ever seek outside funding for any of your companies?
Potential. I definitely wouldn't close the door to it.
Okay.
There's one side where it's, keep your equity, bootstrap it, and, perhaps it's a little bit of an old terminology and an old way of thinking. There is also an element where if your product needs expertise and extra funding to make sure that it's a premium level product and you don't have it, then you shouldn't be stubborn and shoot yourself in the foot to not to. So that's definitely something that we would consider.
Did you consider in the past for Lanestay?
Yes. I considered the way it would work, whether but it would sort of, in ground essence, become a similar structure to co-hosting. People bring me their apartments. I was actually at one point before that platform became available, I was actually looking at seeing if people wanted to come along Lane, say, let's buy an apartment together and I'll give you 80% type thing. So ultimately we achieved it through this perfect program. Before then, yes, we did consider it.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much for your time, Frazer.
And not a problem, Ray. It was a pleasure to be here. And next time I'll be speaking about the new product and I look forward to it.
And for the listeners who want to follow your journey or contact you, what's the best way to find you?
As of last week, I'm on LinkedIn. So you can find me at Frazer King, FrazerKing. I'm also on Instagram. The handle is It's Frazer King because someone stole the Instagram handle Frazer King with 2 followers and I'm still salty about it. But you can also search us up on Lanestay on Google, and for the new product, Every Stay, EVRY Stay.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And I hope you have a good day.
Thank you, Ray.